Hear the whisper of reeds as the first seeds are pressed into the earth. At the dawn of civilization, a young woman kneels beside a riverbank. Mud cools between her fingers as she plants barley in the silt after the floods have receded. This single act of settling changed time itself. A surplus of grain fed specialists and thinkers. Walls rose to protect communities, and laws were carved into stone. Along the world's great rivers, granaries stood beside courts, and the first stories explained the cosmos. Writing was born to count what power stored. From these hubs, rulers stretched their reach, claiming divine right as roads tied distant villages to gleaming capitals. When drought, war, or weak airs caused empires to crack, the patterns of civilization endured. Sages gave power a deeper meaning: ritual, compassion, duty, making strangers feel part of a shared story. Ideas began to travel farther than any army. A scribe turned trader carries a parable in her pack and a contract in her sleeve. Belief, law, and coin moved as one, turning borders into bridges. It was the routes between these worlds that truly began to connect us. Caravans mapped the winds and waters, etching paths across continents. Sailors learned the rhythms of the monsoon. Shipwrights stitched planks to brave the open sea. Metals, spices, and stories crossed the vast emptiness of deserts. Across the Afro-Eurasian world, these fragile ties linked distant markets long before the age of engines. Then, in the late 15th century, bold pilots sketched the outlines of new coasts, and transoceanic voyages pulled the entire globe into a single, irreversible conversation. Our maps, languages, and faiths still echo those ancient routes. But so do our modern debates over borders, migration, and trust. For the oceans carried more than cargo. They carried silver, sugar, and unseen microbes, tilting the world's balance of power forever. In Paris, smoke and ideas ignite at once. A printer's apprentice, a distant descendant of that riverbank planter, wipes ink from his knuckles as the streets outside shake with cries for bread. It is the late 18th century. In a lecture hall, a spark of electricity jumps. In an alley, a pamphlet changes hands faster than a rumor. Experiments began to question kings. Proclamations, since 1789, claimed rights for the common person. The nation-state stirred awake. Soon, factories hummed through the night, and life was reshaped by wages, unions, and the clock. Steam and steel pulled entire villages toward cities they did not build. Decades later, a farm boy in a trench tastes metal in the rain. The world tilts on its axis in 1914. Factory thunder became artillery thunder, and letters home shrank to whispered prayers. Total war and genocide tore apart borders and families. By 1945, old empires were limping toward their end. A school teacher on a coastal salt flat lifted a pinch of salt in an act of defiance that challenged a crown. From partisans in forests to strikers on the docks, small acts of resistance kept hope alive. In the aftermath, as new flags were raised over scarred lands, a question lingered: who owns tomorrow? In a dim dorm room in the 1990s, a student clicks onto a glowing screen and hears a voice from an ocean away. The Cold War's ice freezes and thaws. Civil rights movements march for justice. A new web of satellites, fiber, and code weaves a net that binds strangers on a wired planet. This history matters now, because our choices ripple across that net instantly. A headline on genome editing arrives by noon. An AI streams a sermon to millions. But as we connect, fractures deepen. Inequality sharpens, and our interdependence feels fragile. Climate disruption, pandemics, and mass migration press upon every shore. The hardest lesson is yet to come. How do we steer this interconnected world without shattering it?